Well, it seems like for you too. I mean, with particularly with stuff that comes up emotionally, it seems a lot of how you lead people through it is getting them to tell the simple truth of their experience and to narrate it as cleanly as possible.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something about what you
Yeah.
think the power of that is?
Yes. Yes.
Why it's powerful?
Yes. It's not talking about it. It's not the same as telling the story
Right.
can lead to it. I'll make a distinction about that. So it's not really story mind that's happening. What happens is that leads to what I would call the expression of the truth of the emotion, the energy of the emotion. And once that's accessed, it's not about the meaning anymore. It's really more the energy of it. And so then it can really then there's no one holding back the grief, the fear, the anger, the anxiety, whatever. It just moves through the system. It doesn't stop with physical contraction or belief about what's happening.
Hmm.
So it's really when somebody is able to express what I call the truth of the condition, then immediately opening begins to happen. Now, if you're in satsang and you're open and you're sitting in the group and someone else is up there and it's happening, you can feel it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it happen.
Yeah.
The person who's up there may be more aware of the pain at that point, more
Mm-hmm.
aware of the actual energy, the intensity, the fire of that resistance, of that movement. And so their mind doesn't say, oh, I'm opening now. It's like they're in it. They've dropped away. There's just the fire of transformation at that point.
So there's that paradox that sometimes one can feel temporarily worse, but that's actually evidence that it's working, that something's working,
It's moving.
that there's movement happening.
Something's moving, yes. Even pain is a movement trying to happen. Pain is energy that's trying to move, but it's not able to move.
Does your emphasis on that in satsang, does that come from some of your work doing self-acceptance training? I mean, where does that,
Sure.
because that's not, that, I mean, ultimately that is in a lot of satsangs, but you pay, I would say, a special
because
attention
I've been
to it.
in, practice since 1980, working with people closely in the healing therapeutic realm, I have a great deal of, experience in supporting people in physical and emotional healing. So it's just and it's naturally led to supporting people in the sort of satsang environment, non-dual environment, in direct teaching, where it just naturally comes in as a way of supporting people. That was a very important part of my own transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to really learn how to feel and to allow that movement. Even though there was tremendous spiritual presence, there was still unfinished business.
Mm-hmm.
There were still wounds in my own heart and my own body that hadn't been seen or felt.
Mm-hmm.
And as those were seen and felt and really perceived in this big heart of compassion, tremendous transformation happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it just became obvious to me that worked. And as many people I've worked with, it's pretty obvious it works. Not everybody works that way because it's not their background.
Mm-hmm.
And really, fundamentally, it's just being in the presence. So
Right.
people come to satsang or they hang around people who are open and awake, and it has a kind of osmosis effect. It kind of resonates people's deep frequency of presence, and that really is what's working. So really, there isn't anything being done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
No one's doing it. It's already done. But it doesn't mean that there isn't a place for learning and growing and developing and healing as a human being. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't exclude that. Some people think it excludes that. You've got it, like that liberation means you don't have to take care of your body or that you don't have to pay attention to your emotions anymore. And maybe you don't. That's possible. But ultimately, everything can be a vehicle to the truth, because everything is fundamentally the truth.
It's made of the truth.
Yeah, even thinking, for that matter. If you can work with your thoughts in such a way that you can become free of them, hey, why not? Most people get caught in their thoughts very, very profoundly.
Yeah, I mean, thoughts are kind of the fall guy right now.
That's a hard one. That's a hard one. I think I think questioning is one of the best ways to work with beliefs and thinking, but it doesn't always
Kind of like
work.
Byron Katie does.
Yeah, but the problem is if somebody's got a very strong energetic emotional thing going on, usually that's what they have to be more kinesthetically oriented first.
Right.
Because the charge is too great. They made their mind, their mental process may be basically, so highly skilled at defending against the pain. They really, that the doorway to freedom isn't going to go that way.
It just keeps moving, and they can't find it.
Yeah, it continually distracts somebody from where the opening is.
Right.
Usually the opening is where you don't want to go. That's why there's usually a primary terror of the ultimate letting go that's very common. And you hear people talk about it, and I had it happen for quite a while until it finally finished.
What was the experience?
It was
Or
that primary fear is that there's a kind of releasing into openness, and then there's a grabbing,
holding on.
There's a contraction, and people often talk about this, and I had that for many years until it finally stopped, until it finally didn't happen anymore. And yes, there was an event that happened, and I was with my teacher Robert Adams, and that particular moment was the moment, and it just didn't, and that was the end of the fear. The stopping of presence. Just, that was it. Mm-hmm. And it was very profound, there was very profound. I was in a very altered place for maybe 6 months.
Right.
And it took about 1.5 years to integrate that, I think. I didn't have any, it was, very powerful.
Yeah.
But it wasn't I don't know, there was still more stuff to come up. Still more human, a lot more human stuff that still was going to come up after that. But it was the end of the fear.
Right.
So awareness was pretty much all there is, but still the human wasn't done. The human still had healing to go.
Right.
I don't know. Each person finds their way.
Right.
I think we make mistake believing. We hear somebody else's experience and think, oh, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think because there's so many experiences out there that are being broadcast now about.
Yeah, and I think that,
in this realm.
it's, as Peace Pilgrim, this wonderful woman who walked across, who had a realization and then would walk. Basically, she walked across, she just kept walking until there was going to be peace, and she walked probably 30,000 miles. I don't know how far she walked, but I know she walked across the United States a number of times, and she used to say it's not healthy to follow another human being. People wanted to follow her. She said, it's not healthy to follow another human being. It's different. There's a difference between following and being around someone who may have experience that might be useful, or even just being around them as a kind of transmission. And I think to understand transmission is pretty an interesting process to begin to understand how our being together, whether it's one-on-one or in satsang, really has some very important physics going on here that clearly works. And I do think that there's something that definitely is happening.
Yeah.
In that regard, I think people have a lot of.
It's hard to talk about. But.
It is, and there's a lot of old beliefs about it that people have, which I think you can pretty much drop all of those and keep discovering how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we find out how it works and we really follow that, not somebody else or some teaching or our beliefs, we follow what works, then we keep being shown. And it's amazing. It just keeps getting more amazing, more mysterious, more incredible.
Mm-hmm.